Okay, let's take up another point that Mr. Godrej is making. And Mr. Godrej, I just want to come to you to elaborate on that. You've said easing various hurdles that exist to do business in India. What is your primary concern? Is it with respect to some of the infrastructure bottlenecks that that India is facing, or that some of these projects are not getting cleared? What do you want the BJP to address if they come to power, as far as infrastructure and growth is concerned?
Too many things in India are decided by the government on a case-by-case basis. That should cease. We should have policy framework for anything, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's mining, whether it is manufacturing. Policy decisions should be taken, and then the private sector should be allowed to move forward without case-by-case clearances based on that policy. This case-by-case working in the government, which has become higher over the last 5 to 7 years to my mind, is impeding growth, is impeding progress, is impeding investment. And we must get out of this cycle, as most countries in the developed world work with. You don't have to go case by case to the government in most cases. And if you look at businesses in India which do not need to go on a case by case basis, take FMCG, take IT, take pharmaceuticals, I think they are doing much better than things like infrastructure or mining or manufacturing, which depends on things like infrastructure and mining. So I think a change in that direction will help tremendously in India.
Okay, well, Mr. Sinha, I want to invite your comment on two specific issues that your government will confront. One of the better things that I would think the current government has done is to slowly increase the price of diesel so that the pinch is not felt, and yet the rates are marketized. It was under your stewardship that the marketization of administered fuel prices took its first early steps. Will you continue with that, this 50 paise increase, till prices are brought to market rates?
Let's not go into details. There are a number of things which a government does after it comes into office and doesn't do before it has come into office. You are quite right in saying that we had deregulated the pricing of both petrol and diesel with effect from 1st April 2002. After a lot of work had been put into it by the then petroleum minister and me, and this government undid it as soon as it came to power. Now, then they went about rediscovering the wheel. We'll certainly like the subsidy burden in the petroleum sector to be brought down. There are certain sensitive issues which also we had tackled when we were in government, like LPG and kerosene. There are other petroleum products. Most of them are market determined, except for petrol and diesel. There is no reason why the subsidy burden should be as high as it is, and a gradual approach is always better than a hammer blow at a given point of time. So we should look at this policy. We will look at this policy and adopt whatever is the best, but the government should have no role at all in determining petroleum product prices. We had transferred
Mr. Sinha, I'm just going to interrupt you
to the oil companies.
I apologize to interrupt you, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to try and squeeze in one last question on FDI in retail. Will that be taken up once the new government, or once the BJP government comes to power?
Especially because, sir, inconsistency in policy, back and forth on policy is something which disturbs investments a goodish bit. Therefore, will you really push back decisions taken already?
FDI in retail is a very badly designed and drafted policy, and the effect of it is already being seen on the ground. You can't frame a policy and leave its implementation to the state governments. Its FDI policy is the preserve of the Government of India, and the Government of India must come out clearly whether it is in favor or against it. You can't say, I am partly in favor, partly against. This is what this government has done. We'll clarify the policy, but let me tell you that we have been opposed to FDI in retail. That continues to be our position as of now.
Okay. Mr. Godrej, we don't have any time, so I'm quickly going to try and squeeze in one last question because it is very topical. The Supreme Court has gone ahead and given that clearance for the, for the Mulund land. And what is the exposure that Godrej Properties has over there, and how much of a benefit would it be for a company like yours?
We were part of this case in the Supreme Court. Our company, private company, Godrej and Boyce owns the land. About 133 acres of our land was involved in this particular case, which the Supreme Court has now ruled in favor of the applicants. We will be able to develop this. We have an agreement where Godrej and Boyce will develop all our Vikhroli land through Godrej Properties, who will be the development manager. They get a 10% fee for the development management. Godrej and Boyce does the investment, and out of the 10 percentage points of fee, Godrej Property gets about 2% goes into advertising and planning. So 8 percentage points goes into the bottom line of Godrej Properties. So we are very pleased that this judgment has come. We'll be able to develop this land in addition to other Vikhroli land which we are already developing.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Mr. Sinha and Mr. Godrej, thank you very much for joining us and proceeding and taking forward this process that we have started of setting the agenda for the next government. Well, that's the highlights of our segment Business of Governance, and we will continue to get you senior political leaders who will be perhaps setting the agenda along with the leaders in India Inc. To set up the agenda for the forthcoming government. Let's shift focus back to the markets at this moment.